Hey, what's up everybody? Josh here with another exciting Photoshop tutorial, and today we're going to be photoshopping Bernie out of this photo, the original photo, into this photo from, of course, Star Wars A New Hope. And here's our final comp. And if you'd like to follow along, the source files, the images that I'm using today are in the description below for you to download. If you'd like access to the final Photoshop file, I make those available to members, so just click that join button underneath the video and you can get access to that. And if you don't have Photoshop already, I have a link in the description where you can get a free trial to Adobe Creative Cloud, which you can get Photoshop with. All right, let's go back to the Bernie image, but before we get started, let's make sure if you're following along, all of our Photoshops look the same, all of our windows. I am using Adobe Photoshop 2022, the latest, greatest. So let's go to Window, Workspace, Photography, and I'm going to reset it. So this is actually the default how the photography workspace should look. But I'm going to take this Layers panel, and I'm actually going to click and drag it and dock it right here, just so it's a little bit easier to see. Now the first thing I want to do is I want to crop this image, so pretty much all we're seeing is Bernie. So to do that, I'm going to go over here to my crop tool, which is also C on the keyboard, and you'll notice that up here we have weight, height, just kidding. We have width, height, and the resolution. So right now, these are all blank, and just what that means is that it's going to allow me to kind of freehand the crop. So we're not constrained by inches or pixels per inch. For instance, you could do a 5x7 at 300 pixels per inch, and that's generally what you'd want to make a photo, an image to print at 5 inches by 7 inches. So since it's not constrained, we're just going to go ahead and crop it in, just get rid of some of the clutter. It'll just make the image easier to work with. And to set that, we can either click this check mark up here, or we can hit enter on our number pad. So now that we have that, we need to cut him out. So there are plenty of ways that you can do that. You can do it with the lasso tool. You can do it with the pen tool. Go in, zoom in really, really far and do a nice, clean roto on this guy. Or you can start with something a little bit easier, something that uses AI to help you cut them out. So I'm going to click on the rectangular marquee tool and then make sure my layer is selected. And up here it says select and mask. I'm going to click on that. And then you see up here it says select subject. Now this is going to use AI to try and find whatever the subject is of the image, whether it be a person or an object, and it's going to try to cut it out. So let's click on that and see what happens. All right, not too bad. So we see that some of the chair here is still selected, and anything that's not selected, you can see the grid pattern behind. So in order to clean this up, we're going to zoom in, and to do that, you can hold Alt on your keyboard and use the scroll wheel on your mouse. That's the easiest way I find to zoom in and out. And then you see this, the circle or the brush that I'm working with. If I hold Alt, you see the plus sign changes to a negative sign. So anything that I paint on while it's negative is going to deselect. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm just going to click and drag over the chair legs, and you can see it kind of figured out what those were. And then I'm going to hold the space bar, and that'll allow me to drag the image around. Again, holding Alt, just click on the chair, And if this happens and you've deselected some of his pant leg there, you can just go over, release Alt, and just paint over it again. And it should clean that up for you. And you don't have to go too crazy, especially on the lower half of him, because we're not going to see that in the final image, at least not in this case. Like, this probably doesn't matter, but I'll go ahead and clean that up too. All right, so that looks pretty good. So next, there are a lot of different settings that you can play with. There's edge detection, the radius. There's smoothing, feathering of the edge, contrast. You can shift the edge in and out. Say if it didn't quite get the edge right, you can move it in or out. You can also do that if it's, you just want to clean up the edge a little bit. You can play with these. I'm going to feather it just a tiny bit, do a little bit of smoothing. This isn't super critical here, just because we're going to be doing it a little quick and dirty. So that's good. I'm going to hit OK. And there we have our cutout Bernie. So you can see what it did. It actually added a layer mask. Now a layer mask, it masks whatever you painted out. And so anything that's painted out or masked out can be brought back using a brush. So we'll get more into that in just a minute. But first, let's go over to this cockpit photo. And we're going to work with this just for a minute. So I'm going to zoom in to Obi-Wan. I think I want to replace Obi-Wan with Bernie. So how I'm going to do that, again, lots of different ways you can do this. I'm going to do it a little quick and dirty. We're going to grab the polygonal lasso tool. And I'm going to zoom in, and I'm just going to start cutting him out. So you just click once, and click again, and move to the next part, click again, and you just work your way, roughly around him. Okay, you don't have to be super accurate with this. Working our way around. And we'll play it a little bit closer here just because it's touching his cheek. And if you screw up, if you accidentally click somewhere you didn't want to, just hit the backspace and that will undo your last click. And also, the further you zoom in here and the tinier you make your selections, the cleaner it's going to look. Now we're going to clean this up a little bit after the fact, but it will make it easier if you make these selections a little bit tighter to begin with. Now if you wanted to take a more professional approach to this, you would want to use, say, the pen tool, which allows you to make more refined selections. And we're just going to work our way around. Now you could just cut this little piece of the cockpit control panel out just to make things a little bit easier. I'm going to leave it in just so we see what it looks like after the fact. But if you were to cut that out, I don't think anyone would notice. Alright, so there we've made it all the way around, and you just click on your first point is how you close that selection. And then you'll see this line going all the way around, and there's our selection. So from here, what we want to do is we're gonna do something fairly simple. We're just gonna use AI, the power of Photoshop, to blend that background, get rid of Obi-Wan completely. And to do that, we're going to right click on that selection. We're going to go to Content Aware Fill. You can hit Fill as well, and Content Aware will pop up here. Or we can click and hit Content Aware Fill, and that'll actually bring up this whole panel, and you can preview what the fill will look like. And it looks kind of weird, but keep in mind that really all we're trying to do here is blend the background a little bit so that any place that Bernie does not cover is going to have some sort of background that's not, you know, Obi-Wan. We don't want to see Obi-Wan's head directly behind him, because then it just spoils the illusion. So we have some options here. We're going to output to a new layer, and that just means that what you're seeing right here is going to be on a new layer covering Obi-Wan completely, covering that selection that we made. So we're going to hit OK. And to deselect this, we're going to hit Command or Control D on the keyboard. And you can see there's still kind of a line going around here. It's not a perfect selection, but again, we're going to clean that up later. If you did want to clean it up now, you could click on the Spot Healing Brush tool, make sure Sample All Layers is selected, and then just kind of go around this line. And that'll help blend it. Okay, but we'll deal with everything else in a minute. So now we're going to go back to Bernie, and the easiest way that I find to get this photo into this photo is to actually click this banner at the top, drag it off so that it's its own window, and then we're going to click and drag the layer and drop it into our other comp. And there you have Bernie in the cockpit. Now we need to resize him so he looks a little bit more realistic. So to do that, I'm going to use Luke as a reference, because he's one of the only ones that has both shoulders in the frame and squared off, so he's going to make the best reference, I think. So to resize Bernie, we're going to hit Command or Control T, and you'll see we have these bars here to the side, and if you just click and drag, it'll resize him proportionately. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball this here and try to make his head roughly the same size as Luke's. And if you get, you know, here and you're like, that doesn't look that realistic, then you can always bring it back down. I think that's probably fine there. If we just rotate this, and if you move to a corner, you can rotate. I think that's pretty good right there. Straighten him back out a little bit, and we're gonna drop him roughly where Obi-Wan was. And we can also go up here to opacity and drop that a little bit. And then we're going to hit this eyeball right next to our fill that we created. And now we can kind of see Obi-Wan back there and use him as a reference. And it kind of looks like we need to make Bernie slightly larger. Maybe he's a slightly larger dude. I think I like him right here. We're just going to work with that. So I'm going to turn that layer back on, bring the opacity on Bernie all the way back up again. Now you can see we still have some work to do. Cutting Bernie out. The nice thing about having this separate layer for the content aware fill is that we can Command or Control Shift click this layer and it'll give us a selection. So we already have this line here that we need to cut out. So how do we cut Bernie out to match this line right here? Well, we're going to go over to our rectangular marquee tool, select that, right click, select inverse, and now the only thing I can modify is in this selection here. Okay, so the next step is we're going to click on the mask for Bernie, and we're going to go over to our brush, and this is what I was talking about earlier. We're going to click on our brush to modify this mask. And if you look at our paint swatches here, so black is going to be fully opaque, fully transparent, and white is going to be fully opaque. So depending on which one you have selected, then that's what you're going to be using, whichever color is on top. Now, if you've been working on another project and the selected color is red or something gray, you can click on this swatch right here and it'll reset it to black and white, or you can hit D on the keyboard, like so. And if you want to switch these, you hit X on the keyboard, or hit this guy right here. So now we have our brush up here at the top. Let's go with 50% hardness. That's just going to be how much feathering there is on our brush. Our size is fine. And then we're going to zoom in. Actually, I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger, so I'm going to hit the right bracket on my keyboard. And I'm just going to start painting. And you can see that everything on Bernie's layer is disappearing. Again, making sure we have Bernie's mask layer selected. And we're just going to paint that out. Okay. Now, why don't we want to paint up this line right here? Well, because we don't want to get rid of that. We'd be getting rid of his whole shoulder there. So Command or Control Z to undo that. And then we'll Command Z to deselect. Now, this is the edge that I was talking about that we'll need to clean up later. I'm not going to worry about that quite yet. But you can see that it looks a little bit, choppy, a little bit cut out. We're going to work on cutting out this portion here first. So again, we're going to use a brush. And on the Bernie layer, we're going to reduce the opacity so that we can see Luke's shoulder and arm. And we're going to zoom in. Adjust our brush a little bit, and we're just going to paint out Bernie where he comes in contact with Luke's shirt. Okay, let's see how that looks. So again, a little bit choppy. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reverse the swatches. So I'm painting with white. And I'm going to go in and I'm just going to lightly touch up this edge. So I'm painting Bernie on top of Luke's shirt just a little bit, just to smooth that edge out. And we can do the same thing over here. So being careful not to bring too much back in. We don't want to screw this line up. And if you're new to Photoshop, this is going to take some time to get just right, but it is a lot of fun. And if you play with Photoshop on a regular basis, you'll learn how to do this stuff in no time. The best way to learn, in my opinion, is just you have something you want to do, you find someone else that's done it online already, or you even break out, you break down whatever you're trying to do and figure out how to do those different steps one at a time, bring them all together, and you can create something new. So Photoshop is just an incredibly powerful tool. I've been using it for years. I absolutely love it. Now again, we can mess with this, blend that in a little bit. Or, honestly, you could just completely erase it, like I said earlier. So if we wanted to completely erase it, we could just switch our swatches. There you go. But I'm going to leave it in, just for kicks and giggles. All right, so that's not looking too bad. I am noticing up here, this is a little funky. It's not too noticeable. I mean, if you're just doing this, you know, you're making memes and you're not too concerned about things like that. I mean, not a lot of people are going to notice that. All right, so keep that in mind. It really just depends on how much of a perfectionist you are. For instance, over here, we have this line. You know, we could, again, go to our spot healing brush tool, go to our fill layer, and just see if we can clean that up a little bit. It might screw up his cheek like that, though, which isn't great. There are some slightly more advanced techniques you can use to make a cleaner selection in the first place. I'm not going to get into those here because I'm trying to keep this somewhat simple. But that's not too bad. All right, so what do we want to do next? Well, we've got Bernie in the cockpit, so bravo. Looking pretty good. So now we could blend him a little bit better, all right? So how do we do that? Let's click on Bernie's layer. Down here at the bottom of the layers panel, you have your adjustment layers that you can create. And one that I like to use is color balance. There are a lot of different ways, a lot of different tools that you can use to blend this. Today I'm going to use color balance. And I am going to go midtones, and the midtones are pretty, if you look at Han's cheek, Luke's cheek, you can see they're pretty golden. So I'm going to shift these toward yellow, and you can see that it's actually changing the color of everything. So how do we fix that? Well, if you hit this button right here, this will actually clip to whatever layer is directly below it. So if we hide that for a second, you can see that the new adjustment layer is right on top of Bernie's layer, okay? So let's click that, and now it will just adjust Bernie's layer. So we're going to give him a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red, and look at that. Already it's starting to look a lot more realistic. You could give him a little bit of magenta, maybe like that. Highlights, I'm not as concerned with the highlights, and really all you're doing here is you're just looking at the different colors in the image, comparing them, and making adjustments. Try to make a match. This is something that's really easy to play with. Shadows, I don't really think they need a lot of adjustment. Okay, so that doesn't look half bad. So I'm going to hide my adjustments. And what do we do next? Well, if we look at these guys, you can see there's some grain. It's blurry. Bernie is not. So how do we fix that? Well, first I'm going to select Bernie. We're going to go up top to Filter. We're going to go to Noise. Add Noise. And we're going to set this to Gaussian. And you can see if I up this a lot, it looks ridiculous. So we're going to keep it fairly low. The idea is to kind of match what's going on Han's face and the rest of the image. So I would say 3 or 4% is probably fairly realistic. Let's go with 3. Hit OK. Okay, that looks good. Let's go to Filter, and now let's blur it. Okay. Let's go Gaussian blur. And I think 1 is pretty good. 0.5 might look fairly realistic. Let's go with 0.5 and hit OK. And let's zoom out and see what we got. That's looking pretty good. I think I'm actually going to blur him a little bit more now that I'm zoomed out. Let's go back to Gaussian blur. And let's up it to 2. Nope, that's too much. 1.5. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And that, my friends, is how you Photoshop Bernie. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful in any way, shape, or form, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and if you'd like access to the specific source files I used or the Photoshop project file, I've made them available to channel members. Just click that join button below the video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.